Hello, I'm Airlie Ward. Welcome to Stateline. For years, broadband internet services in Tasmania have been second-rate with high prices and slow speeds. Analysts say it's been costing the state millions of dollars every year in economic growth. But now, a silver bullet from the federal government, with Tasmania being chosen as the starting point for the new national broadband network. Lucy Shannon reports on what the decision means for the state.
Guys, I've got to make an important call. Can you get off the net now, please?
If you're one of the many Tasmanians who still surfs the net using dial-up, this is an all too familiar scene.
We've been very dissatisfied with the speed of dial-up and with the fact that it ties up the phone lines. We've been trying to get broadband for ever, it feels like. When I've contacted Telstra regarding that, they tell me, oh, we should be getting it into our area within 6 months. But it just never seems to happen.
It's even more frustrating for Maureen Eadie because on the other side of her street, in Lauderdale, east of Hobart, various neighbours have access to broadband.
Well, this is the crazy thing, is directly across the road, they've had broadband for 3 years now. So it's all quite beyond me. And 100 metres down the road, they have it as well. So, and yet their neighbours can't get it. It's just, there seems to be no rhyme or reason why this is happening.
With 3 school-aged children who need to use the internet daily for schoolwork, like most parents, Mrs Eadie now views broadband or high-speed internet as an essential service. Essential it might be, but the majority of Tasmanian households still don't have it. Just 32% are signed up, the lowest proportion in the country. But that might be all about to change. Last week, the Prime Minister announced that the government, in partnership with the private sector, would spend $43 billion on a massive project to bring superfast broadband to the vast majority of Australians through optic fibre. For Tasmania, the excitement reached boiling point as it was revealed the rollout would start here in a matter of months.
This is a good day. It's a great day for Australian infrastructure, a great day for Tasmanian infrastructure, and a great day for jobs.
The promise is for internet speeds 100 times faster than currently available. If you're still using dial-up and want to download a movie, you won't be watching it anytime soon. It takes about a day and a half. But on the promised speed of 100 megabits per second, it will take just a minute and a half. Entertainment aside, the potential benefits for business, education, healthcare and the household are being hailed as limitless.
In the world of IT these days, it's all about being able to transmit large amounts of data as quickly as possible and as cost effectively as possible. And so we're getting to the point where the copper cables in the ground from our old telecommunications network are really just reaching their limit in terms of their capacity.
Hobart company Raw Films is best known for documentaries, but a large part of its business is creating online educational products. Its main markets are the UK and the USA.
37% of the English government schools actually use one or more of our modules. A lot of our content that we put down the pipe is very media rich, lots of video and interactivity in there, and things that the children engage with better in that way.
With the arrival of superfast broadband, Tasmanian school kids could start getting a more interactive education.
It certainly means that it broadens our potential market, because it's very hard if a school only had not much better than a 56k dial-up modem sort of link in the school. Once you get 20 or 30 kids playing on that, it's a long wait for anything.
Last year, a national review into broadband services reported Tasmania was in the worst position of all states, with prices the highest and standards low. Australia is below standard internationally, so it's a damning picture. Telstra owns the only 2 lit-up fibre optic links across Bass Strait. Having the wholesale monopoly on broadband services, they are regularly charged with the blame.
I think one of the great mistakes that Australian policy makers made was to leave Telstra as a wholesaler and retailer in a monopoly position.
In the past, Telstra has said low volumes are the reason it costs more to transfer data across Bass Strait than on its international routes. Until the NBN announcement last week, all hopes for more competition in the Tasmanian market lay with getting a third cable lit up. It's been lying dormant alongside the Basslink electricity cable for 3 years. After millions of taxpayers' dollars spent on wasted access fees, last year the Tasmanian government finally signed a deal which would enable both Basslink and Aurora to become broadband internet wholesalers, with prices being mooted at 30% cheaper than they are now. It hasn't started yet, but it's due to begin about the same time the national broadband network comes to town.
$500 million of optic fibre or thereabouts being rolled out in Tasmania will create jobs in every town.
The details are yet to be finalised, but the Premier says there'll be hundreds of jobs just in construction.
From trench diggers through to cable splicers, through to the professional and technical services that will be required to run this network.
Aurora Energy will build the network and be the product wholesaler, but not the retailer.
Well, I would see Aurora as a wholesaler. I don't want to see those two things mixed up in Tasmania. What's important here is that we will have a wholesaler in competition to Telstra right here on the island.
Of course, all eyes will be on the first stage of the federal government's mega project, so it needs good, strong results. And there are solid strategic reasons behind the decision to choose Tasmania as the starting point. Firstly, the state already has a basic backbone of optic fibre running alongside the natural gas pipeline. Secondly, for the last 4 years or so, the Tasmanian government has been funding Australia's only brownfields fibre to the premises commercial trial.
I think it comes back to the vision of the state government of Tasmania. And this started all the way back with David Crean. In fact, at that time, David Bartlett was working with David Crean. So David Bartlett has a really very long history of being interested and supportive of fibre to the home.
The trial, called TasColt, used technology created by Melbourne electrical engineer John Spring and his colleagues. Their work was considered so exciting they were able to get some big players interested early.
The world leaders in this area, including Hitachi, Corning, Intel and others, and really proved that this technology was viable for Australia.
John McCann from the Electronic Commerce Centre oversaw TasColt, which supplied fibre optic broadband to more than 1,000 houses and businesses in the Hobart suburbs of Newtown and South Hobart and areas of Devonport.
We needed to have learnings on how to get optic fibre to traditional suburbs built in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. We call that brownfields, overbuild or retrofitting to the houses. A lot of the footprint was in heritage-listed areas such as Macquarie Street, South Hobart. They were all learnings that perhaps when you're thinking about a technology trial and communications trial you wouldn't normally take into account.
Over the years, it encountered funding struggles, technical difficulties and political criticism, but the determination appears to have paid off. Armed with the results from the trial and the fibre optic trunk in place, the Tasmanian government submitted a bold application to the National Broadband Network tender process to build its own network, effectively competing against the major telcos like Telstra and Optus.
I really do see this Tasmania acting as the catalyst or as the pilot for the rest of the country.
The Tasmanian government and Aurora have shown great vision and leadership. There were a lot of doomsayers, naysayers, who said, oh, it's a waste of time, why are Tasmania bothering? Well, today what you're seeing is that vision becoming reality.
My office was inundated with calls in the week following the announcement by the Prime Minister from companies all over the world interested in what we're going to be doing here.
The undertaking will have challenges. Some areas won't get fibre, but the Premier is adamant the rough NBN estimate of towns with less than 1,000 premises missing out doesn't fit Tasmania's model.
I guarantee that our model of rollout will make it cost effective to go to towns of less than 1,000 people in Tasmania. To the extent to where those towns will be, some of them as small as 50 and 100 premises, I expect.
And if you don't end up getting fibre, you're being promised high-speed wireless internet. Despite the fibre revolution being hailed, Maureen Eadie is sick of waiting.
We've made the decision that we've got to do something, so we'll go with wireless at this point and then perhaps review our options once things change.
Tasmania is the testbed. Fibre will be rolled out here before the federal government has even completed the overall business case. And will householders take up the superfast broadband? Price still unknown.
As people are going to become more reliant on such a high bandwidth connection, they'll look back and ask the question, how could they have lived without this network connection?
And more details on the broadband rollout will be released when Hobart hosts the next Council of Australian Governments meeting in 2 weeks. It will be the first time COAG's been held in Tasmania for 20 years.